All right, let's talk about Apple, because one of the biggest, most secretive companies on the planet just had to admit a pretty rare and honestly very public defeat. And it's all about their struggle with the one thing that's supposed to be defining our future: artificial intelligence.
Get this, ugly and embarrassing. Now, that's not some tech blogger talking. Nope, that's a quote from an Apple senior director, Robbie Walker, talking about Apple's own flagship AI project. He apparently said this in an internal meeting, calling the whole thing an absolute disaster because they were promoting tech that wasn't even finished. I mean, wow. Those are some seriously strong words coming from inside a company that's famous for being so tight-lipped. So, what's the fix? Well, after years of falling behind and, as we'll see, total internal chaos, Apple is doing something pretty much unthinkable to save its AI ambitions. They're turning to their biggest competitor for help. And that move, it completely changes the power dynamic in Silicon Valley.
So let's break down this unthinkable partnership, because what this does is completely reframe the relationship between these two tech giants. And at its core, it's really a story about a stunning financial reversal.
Okay, first, you gotta remember how things used to be. For years, Google has been paying Apple an absolute fortune. We're talking a reported $18 billion a year, just to be the default search engine on iPhones. Think about that. Apple was totally in the driver's seat, just cashing these massive checks from its biggest rival.
But now, whoa, the tables have completely turned. In this crazy reversal, Apple is now going to be paying a reported $1 billion a year back to Google. And what are they getting for that money? The keys to the kingdom, the very core of Google's AI tech, its Gemini model.
And if you look at the fine print of the deal, it really just highlights the huge dilemma Apple is in, right? They desperately need Google's super powerful Gemini model to fix Siri's most advanced features, like summarizing stuff or multi-step planning. But to keep up that whole Apple brand image, they're insisting on running Gemini on their own private cloud servers, for privacy. And you can bet you are not going to hear the name Google mentioned in any of their marketing for this.
So the big question is, how did Apple, the company that's all about polish and perfection, even get here? Well, it all started with a super public, super frustrating failure that, let's be honest, every single iPhone user knows all too well.
I mean, just look at this head-to-head. The gap in capability is just massive. You ask Siri to compare two high-end phones, and what do you get? A list of Google search links. Useless. You ask Gemini the same thing, and it gives you a full breakdown. Or try this. Ask Siri to play the Friends theme song. It'll probably play some random song that just has the word Friends in the title. Gemini? It opens YouTube Music and plays the right track. It's not even close. Siri's just years behind.
And to fix all this, Apple made a huge announcement, right? Apple Intelligence. It was supposed to be this grand reinvention of Siri for the iPhone 16. The only problem? It was basically vaporware. A promise for technology that just wasn't ready. It never shipped. And that, as you can imagine, led to a ton of consumer frustration and even some lawsuits for false advertising.
But you see, this public struggle with Siri was really just a symptom of a much, much deeper problem. Because behind that pristine Apple image, a kind of corporate civil war was brewing. And the AI division? That was ground zero.
And this timeline, it really tells the story of just a prolonged crisis. You can see it right here. December 2022, ChatGPT launches and bam, Apple's internal teams are sent into a total scramble. They've basically been floundering ever since. That panic led to that premature new Siri announcement in 2024. Then the brain drain starts. Top talent like their head of foundational AI, Ruming Pong, just up and leaves for Meta. And of course, that means delay after delay for the features everyone was promised.
So what really went wrong inside the company? Well, it was a perfect storm of corporate dysfunction that just paralyzed their ability to innovate. The AI division literally fractured into two warring teams. The original Siri team was apparently notoriously slow and just bogged down in bureaucracy. And then this nasty blame game erupted between marketing and engineering over who was at fault. It was, simply put, a mess.
This whole crisis, this multi-billion-dollar scramble to catch up, it really makes you step back and ask a really fundamental question, a question that challenges the entire industry's current obsession. Beyond just having a better voice assistant, do we, as consumers, actually care about any of this stuff?
And this chart, this illustrates a really stark reality. Despite all the nonstop hype we hear from tech companies,
A CNET survey found that only 11% of consumers in the US say AI features are a reason they'd upgrade their phone. Just 11%. What do most people care about? The stuff you'd expect: price, battery life, and the camera.
And actually, if you dig a little deeper, it gets even more interesting. About 3 out of every 10 people say they don't find mobile AI helpful at all, and they don't want to see more of it. That is a huge chunk of the market that is actively disinterested. That's a real problem for companies that are pouring billions and billions of dollars into this tech.
And hey, this isn't just an Apple problem either. Look at Samsung. They went all in on Galaxy AI, betting it would create this massive wave of upgrades. And it didn't happen. When it came time for their earnings calls, all they could talk about was market weakness, not some big AI-fueled sales boom.
So, this all leads to a fascinating idea. What if Apple's embarrassing stopgap solution, this deal with Google, accidentally turned out to be a much smarter, more efficient strategy for the entire industry's future? Okay, the best way to wrap your head around the AI industry right now is to think of it just like a smartphone. It's got layers. First, you have the hardware. That's the physical data centers. Then you have the operating system, like iOS or Android. In the AI world, that's the foundational model, like Google's Gemini. And then on top of that, you have the apps, the specific tools people actually use, like Siri.
Now, the big idea here, the real game changer, is that the OS layer, those big foundational AI models, they might just be becoming a commodity. That means they're getting so similar, so interchangeable, that it doesn't really matter who makes them. They just work. Think about it like a car engine. Way back in the day, every car company had to build its own unique engine. But today, a lot of cars use really great, reliable engines built by specialized third-party companies.
So follow this logic. By paying Google for its AI operating system, Apple might have just stumbled upon a brilliant shortcut. Instead of spending hundreds of billions of dollars trying to build their own OS from scratch, they can just lease a great one. And then they can focus all their energy and all their resources on perfecting the part we actually touch and interact with, the app, which in this case is Siri.
And this all leaves us with a really provocative final thought. If a company as massive and powerful as Apple can basically opt out of building its own foundational AI model and still compete, then does that mean the entire multi-trillion-dollar AI arms race to build the biggest, most expensive model is built on a flawed premise? Is it possible that the real value isn't in building the engine anymore, but in creating the best possible driving experience? It's a question that could honestly reshape the entire tech landscape.